Well, howdy everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to do row scale steam locomotive rods. Today we're going to be using this as a base, and we're going to be using scripts from the official model, and we're going to have all our rods already done here. This tutorial is solely on how to set up your rods. You also, before we start the tutorial, we have to get a couple base rules down. This tutorial explains rods based on the fact that you should already know how to use the row scale system. If you know how to set up gliders, you should be fine. If you know how to set up gliders and add a base and make a locomotive move, this tutorial is just for doing the rods. Okay? Alright, let's get started. So as I said, we're going to start off with this base right here. You can see it already has its gliders and it already has a base. And here are our rods. We have this. This is called the A handle. Your A handle is what your rods rotate around. To find an A handle, you can take an official model like this. Come over here, find the moving parts, and in your moving parts will be an A handle. Now you can separate the model by compressing Control U so that you can access this and just move it over. But since I already have an A handle over here, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to separate this because I'm going to need the scripts for later on. So we're going to take our A handle, and we're going to move it onto our base. And from this point, I like to try and center the A handle as much as possible. So make sure it is centered side to side, which it looks like about it is, so I'm not going to touch that. And then you're going to make sure it's centered where the axle would be. So how I do this is I take it down, and you see how there's a blue, kind of a blue line that shows up right here and not over here? That means the A handle, this means it isn't centered yet. So we're going to kind of drag it over. There's about an even amount of blue on either side, here and here. So now it's centered that way. So we're going to bring it up to where we think is about there. Then we're going to do the same thing over here. So that looks a little too high. So we're going to take it back, maybe bring it down just a little bit. Then bring it back over. Okay. Not low enough yet. Alright. Let's try there. Alright. That looks about good to me. So now we have a centered A handle. And now it's time for rods. These rods here, the ones that connect your wheels, these are called your coupling rods, as you can see over here. Of course, you're going to have two, your right side and your left side. And they have to be named accordingly. If you look up here, the right one is named coupling rod right, and it has to be spelled exactly like that. And the coupling rod left has to be named exactly like that, coupling rod left, with the uppercases on all first letters of each word. It has to be like that or the scripts won't work with it. These ones, the one that basically take your coupling rods and basically take it up to the pistons, these also have to be named connecting rods. These are connecting rods. You can see up here, connecting rod right and connecting rod left. And just like with the coupling rods, they have to be named exactly that, connecting rod left and connecting rod right, with the first letter of each word being uppercased, or they won't work. These called crossheads. Crosshead left, crosshead right. Same thing with these. First letter of each word has to be capitalized, and they both have to be named exactly like this. Okay, so now we got how to name our rods. We're going to select all our rods really quick and make sure that they are anchored with can collide off. Can collide has to be off, or the rods simply will mess the model. The whole model will fudge up. Okay, so now we're going to take our rods. We're going to just slide them back over here. Doesn't really matter where you place them, because when you actually enter the game, the script will do the work for you. As you can see, I'm not being accurate with this. I'm just sliding them back. Looks about good to me. Now, before we group all this, I'm going to take one set of coupling rods and connecting rods, duplicate it, and bring it over. I'll show you why I do that later. But now that we're at this point, we are going to group it all together. Alright, now that's one big group. Now let's take the scripts out of this 060. This is the official model. The DCC locomotive script, advanced weld, is rolling stock, and locomotion animation's new launcher. You need this for steam locomotives. There's multiple variations of the locomotive animation script out there, but for this example, we're going to use this one, the locomotive animation's new launcher. You're going to scroll down till you find you're going to need the DCC properties and DCC functions. We're going to copy those and paste them into the model. So if we click play and we play test this, the rods will work, but because we haven't used math to place them properly yet, they just don't work like they should. See, in this case, they don't work at all. This is because I forgot an important step. I forgot to group the rods. So we're going to ungroup that. We're going to take these rods right here, right here, right here. Take your coupling rods, your connecting rods, and your crossheads, and your A handle, and you're going to make a separate group. Now right now, see, this is called model. Can't be like that. To have it work with the script, it has to be named moving parts. Just like this, with the M capitalized and the P capitalized. Has to be moving parts or the script will not work with the model. Now we can regroup it all and take the scripts we've copied and paste them back in. It's a very crucial step. It has to be named moving parts for it to even function. Now if we click play, the rods will work. They will. But they will not be lined up how they should. As you can see over here, they look completely off. Over here, yeah, they're not even on the axles right. So, this is where math comes in. This is why I duplicated these. Alright, so we're going to kind of pull these apart from each other, like so. So first we're going to start with the connecting rod, the coupling rod. This is called the coupling rod. We're going to take apart, we're going to bring it down, and we're going to find the distance between the two center pins, or whatever you want to call them. So kind of gauge it, I don't know, about right there, and about right there. So we can see we have a distance between the two of 0.722. Now, you're going to take this and you're going to come up to Google or whatever you want, find your calculator, and do 0.722 divided by 2. That's going to be 0.361. Keep this number in mind. Now, before we ever go further, I want to explain something. What I'm showing you is for 8 coupled drivers. 8 wheels, 4 axles, rods. Okay? It is simpler to do with 3 axles or 5 axles because, well, I'll explain that in a minute. But okay, so remember, 0.361. So you know those animations, the new local animations launcher? You're going to click down on the arrow. You're going to find where it says local animation. You're going to click on this. It's going to bring you to this page. So remember, this is the coupling rod we're working on. This one, right here. So in the animation script, find where it says coupling rod. Then take where it says horizontal offset, or local cop rod Z offset. I remember that number? Okay, 0.361. And let's double check. Always double check. Make sure you got 0.361. Okay. This is what varies where your rod is placed and how it's placed so that it lines up. And that's this for an 8 set of wheels. On something like 10, what you would do is you would just set that to 0, because if you have your A handle correctly placed on the center wheel, on the center axle of those 5 axles, then basically your rod is already properly where it should be. So on 10 coupled driving wheels, you need to set that to 0. On 6 coupled driving wheels, also set that to 0. But on 8 coupled driving wheels, at 12 coupled driving wheels, and 2 coupled driving wheels, driving axles, then you're going to need to actually find the distance like I showed you. So remember, 361. And for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to take it one part at a time. So now we're going to click play. And hopefully, if I did this right, which I don't do all the time, but when I do it right, the rod should now be properly lined up with the wheels. So we're going to come over here to the base we're working with, and you can see the coupling rod is lined up with the wheels now and rotates perfectly around your wheels. That's good. So what do we do now? Well, now we move on to the connecting rod. The connecting rod's almost as simple. Got to find the distance between your 2 pins, or whatever you want to call them. I'm just going to go estimate right about in there. And if you want to take the time, you can be more accurate. For the purpose of this video, this shows it just fine. Okay, so the distance here is 1.566. Okay, so we're going to come over here. Make sure you come in your local animation script. And see where it says connecting rod offset? You're going to change this to, but first, you have to think about this. We had to modify the distance of the coupling rod. That means we're also going to have to modify the distance of the connecting rod too. So, if we go up to Google, you take 1.566 divided by 2 equals 0.783. Keep the number in mind. Even repeat it if you have to. 0.783. We're going to come up to our local animation script, and remember, we're working with the connecting rod this time. We're going to find where it says connecting rod. You remember the number 0.783? Good. Because here, again, under connecting rod, local con rod Z offset, or the horizontal distance from the crank pin to the connecting rod, you're going to change this number to 0.783, just like we got on the calculator. And as I said, we're taking this one piece at a time, so I'm going to play it and see if we got that right. It looks like we have. As you can see, the pins on that 3rd axle back all line up. We're almost there. Almost. Now there's a couple more things you have to do. This you have to do with the connecting rod. So do you remember the full distance? If you look up here, 1.566. Copy that number and come up to where you find connecting length. Local under configure the motion, find local connecting length, or the length of the connecting rod. And we're going to change it to 1.566, just like we got in the calculator. That's the distance we need. What this does is it keeps the pins lined up when it's rotating. If it sets too short, the rotation won't be as great as the rotation of the coupling rod, therefore those pins won't line up. If it's too much, the same story. So now that we have that number plugged in, we can come back to the play test. Come over here. And we can see that those pins stay aligned whilst the whole thing is moving. Pretty nice. Alright, and this is just how I do it. It's not how you should, but if you noticed, the crosshead was too far forwards. So we need to bring that back. This is where I kind of estimate. If we go into crossheads, we go to find the horizontal offset again, or crosshead Z offset. We're going to bring this, we're going to dial that back. We're just going to see how it's 225. I'm just going to put it at 2 and play. Now, this isn't how you should professionally do it, but this is how I do it because I don't feel like putting in the time to actually properly center the crosshead. And as you can see, it has brought it back a little bit. But we're going to try, we want that to be dead on accurate, dead on even with the pin on the connecting rod. So we're actually just going to get rid of that. We're just going to put it 0, see what happens. You can see, something like that has brought it back too far. Because as you can see how the crosshead is centered on that pin? Yeah, that means we've brought it back way too far. Alright, so now we're gonna, let's say 1. We're gonna bring it up 1. See, we're so close. We're getting really close here. So, we need to bring it up even further. So I know this is the part where I said a lot of people probably don't like the way I do it, but this is just the way I do it because it's the easiest for me. It takes a little more time, but it's just one more thing you don't have to measure. Kind of just makes the process a little simpler. Basically, keep playing with it till you get it right. See, even that's not right, so you're gonna have to mess with it a little further. Let's try just 2. Oh man, you see that's brought the rod a little too far forward, I think. Let's see. Nope, actually, it's still too far back. So what we're going to do, we're going to change that to 3. We're going to make it 3. As I said, this is the area where you have to play with it. Or at least for me, you do. Oh, see, that's got it almost perfect. We're going to bring it up just a little bit more, though I think it's still a little far behind. Let's see here. Yeah, it's just a little too far back still. We don't need to bring it up much, let's just bring it up 0.01. That looks pretty darn good to me, folks. So now you have a nice set of fully functional basic row scale rods. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? So that's it for the tutorial. That's how to do basic row scale rods. Since this is going to be a YouTube video, and it's not going to be marked for kids, it is going to be marked for 13 and up. Please leave a comment on the video if you have any questions. I will do my best to answer them. Or if I post this on my Discord, please also question me there. I am open to it all. After you've got the basics down, I'll do more tutorials on how to do more advanced rods, till you get to something like this, where you're doing rods and animated wheels. But as I said, that first tutorial was just basic animations. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope the tutorial found useful. Have a good night.